So before seeing Don't Breathe 2, Kim had actually never seen the first Don't Breathe, so I urged her to see that one. And I must say, Kim, I'm sure you're glad you watched the first one, because without seeing it, you would have went into the sequel completely blind.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, welcome back to yet another episode of Round the Clock Frights. I am Josh.
I'm Kimberly.
And today we're going to be talking about a sequel that, honestly, we kind of forgot existed until recent days. Like, I remember reading something about it like a year ago, but I completely forgot that it was coming out. And then I looked at the release schedule for this year, and I saw that Don't Breathe 2 was on there. And I got kind of excited because I liked the first one. Did you?
Besides all of the surprises in there, I definitely really enjoyed the first one. It was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely very unpredictable.
Yeah, I sent her a warning before she watched the first film. I told her not to get too attached to any of the characters, particularly the Stephen Lang character, because, as you all know, he turns out to be a pretty terrible person in that film.
And it was funny because I said I usually don't get attached to any of the horror characters because you never know. Sometimes the nicest ones end up turning out to be the bad guy. So I'm like, I'm not going to do it. And then like maybe 10 minutes in, I started to almost trust that guy. And I was like, wait a minute. Josh told me not to trust him. So then I had to put my guard back up. So I think if it wasn't for your warning, I probably would have trusted this guy until the very end.
Well, I'm glad you listened to my advice because Stephen Lang's character turns out to be pretty terrible. He did some pretty messed up shit in that first movie.
Yeah.
You can't do this to me.
There's nothing a man cannot do once he accepts the fact that there is no God.
No! No, 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 no!
But what I really liked about the first film in particular was that it had a lot of very creative like camera setups. Like the way that the camera would just like move like in and, you know, throughout the house. Like there would be some shots where the camera would start, you know, on the bottom floor, and then it would like, you know, start to ascend upwards, and it would go through like a wall into like another character's bed. Like there were some very unique shots in that movie.
It made you feel like you were almost in the film.
Yeah.
Being the one walking down the halls. I kind of really like that too.
Yeah, it put me on edge, and I must say that I was holding my breath.
I was just going to say, you couldn't breathe.
I didn't want to breathe. But yes, this sequel, it was just released. A different director this time. The first director, Alvarez, he was a man who worked on the Evil Dead remake. Mm-hmm. That was his debut feature film. And he co-wrote this movie. And he actually said in an interview that he didn't want to make a sequel to Don't Breathe until they came up with a concept that was on par with the original, if not better. How do you... Okay. How do you think this sequel compares to the first film? Is it on par with it? Is it better?
Maybe the first half of it.
Or is it a complete dumpster fire?
I would have to... Okay, so I mean... I do agree. I think I really liked the first half of it, but the direction it went towards the end, I wasn't digging it.
Yeah, because the first half of the film was actually pretty decent.
It could have seemed like it would have been, I don't know, if they would have went a different way with it, it could have been just as good as the first one. But then when they took that total 180, I was like, I
don't know about this.
I don't know about this.
This is starting to feel like a John Wick clone. They're trying to turn Stephen Lang's character into a Keanu Reeves. Just a fair warning, guys, we are going to get into some spoilers because everything that is wrong about this movie, we have to talk about. Because, you know, like we said, the first half of this film, you know, was actually pretty decent. It was a decent home invasion thriller. You know, you were getting wrapped up in the relationship between Stephen Lang and his young, quote-unquote, daughter. And they had kind of a unique relationship, you know, in the fact that he was overprotective, but he also wanted to teach her how to survive in this cruel world. Like, at the beginning, she's being chased through the woods by this supposedly bloodthirsty dog, but it turns out she's just getting trained by Stephen Lang's character. So it was an interesting relationship, how he was overprotective, but at the same time, he was also training her to prepare herself for the real world. I thought it was an interesting dynamic.
But then mixed in with, if you've seen the first one, you know what his character is, so it's like, what's his motive behind this?
Yeah, you're constantly questioning, like, are they going to make him a villain again? Is he going to be a full-blown antagonist? Or are they going to turn him into an anti-hero? An action hero, if you will. Here's where the spoilers begin. It turns out that they actually wanted us to root for Stephen Lang's character this time around. The first half of this movie was a home invasion thriller. The second half was more of a John Wick style revenge flick, and I think they made a serious mistake. What do you think?
I definitely agree. It was a big mistake, only because we already know what his character has done. And for you to try to turn him into this hero, it was kind of still hard to root for his character.
And they didn't fully ignore like some of the things he did in the first movie. Like he admits at the end that, you know, he has raped people.
Yeah.
He's done some very terrible things. But here's the thing. Another thing that was so appealing about the first movie was that it did have a sense of realism. I mean, it kind of became, you know, the horror version of Home Alone. You know, he sets up like all these traps like inside his house, and it becomes more of a mission to get out of this crazy man's house. But it wasn't too over the top. It wasn't too cartoonish. You know, there weren't any elaborate booby traps. It still felt like this could happen in the real world. This sequel got really silly, particularly in the second half. Do you want to tell our viewers what happens in the second half of this movie and why it just completely, shall we say, ruins the Don't Breathe saga?
Yeah. So the second half pretty much sets up that these people who do invade his house, turns out one of the guys turns out to be the father of the little girl. And we find out that the fire that started the whole thing, where she was found in the streets by him.
Yeah, she had passed out in the streets.
Yeah.
He pretty much adopted her.
Yeah, that, you know, he was trying to find her, which was weird. I don't know. It was totally off guard because you see him in the first half and he couldn't have said this in the beginning, but comes and invades the house to get her. Weird, but anyhow, so he pretty much tells the little girl that he's her father, you know, come back home with him. So you're thinking, okay, maybe this might go in a good direction where, okay, his character's still bad. He kidnapped this girl. She's going to reunite with mom and dad.
Great.
And
he's still a villain. Awesome.
Yeah, which would have been okay. I could have dug the fact that, you know, he kidnapped her, because that seems not totally off from his character.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so she's pretty much on fence on whether she wants to stay. She goes, but she ends up getting pretty much kidnapped back to his house. Wakes up in this room, and she's completely still kind of confused. You know, he tells her she's got an option to leave if she wants to, but tells her the full story on what happened. So as she gets ready to leave, because she ends up deciding to leave, she hears, this part's so bad, but you hear like a woman coming out in her wheelchair, and she's singing a lullaby that this girl is so familiar with, because that's the only thing she can remember from her past was her mother singing her this lullaby. So when she comes to realize it's her mom alive, she ends up staying. So you're thinking, okay, cool, happy ending. Still no happy ending. Turns out the only reason they tried to get their daughter back was because the mother was dying from, wasn't it like a disease in her heart?
Yeah, like a heart disease. From
the smoke that burned up their old house. So she needed a new heart, but she could only get a heart from somebody close to her, which would have been her daughter. So now they're going to sacrifice her daughter to keep her mother alive.
And we were discussing this in the theater. Like, here's the thing. I think it would have been a much more effective twist if these people who claim to be her parents were actually just good, genuine people.
That wanted their daughter to come back.
They wanted their daughter to come back. You know, they just wanted to, you know, start from scratch. You know, they wanted to, you know, bring their family back together. But it turns out these characters are definitely much worse than you could possibly imagine, because, yeah, the mom, she wants to essentially remove her little girl's heart and put it in her own body so that she can continue living.
Well, her daughter just pretty much dies.
And that's where the anti-hero angle comes in, because Stephen Lang, he's able to locate them at this abandoned hotel, and he essentially goes all Keanu Reeves, like John Wick on their asses. Like, he's doing some crazy things. Like, he basically, oh my god, if you guys have watched Game of Thrones, you know that really mind-blowing scene where Oberyn Martell gets murdered by the Mountain? You know what I'm talking about. That scene where the Mountain puts his thumbs inside Oberyn Martell's eye sockets and basically makes his whole head explode. Yeah, they repeat that here. And Yeah, so it turns into more of like a revenge-style action thriller, and we're supposed to root for Stephen Lang's character, even though I think it would have been much better if he actually was a villain, because he did some really terrible things in the first film. I mean, irredeemable things. He was kidnapping women, he was impregnating them. And here's the thing. If this wasn't a sequel, if he started out in this film as kind of this grizzled old war veteran who, they hint that he did some bad things in the past, but, he has kind of improved himself, then it would have been totally fine. But we had already seen some of the terrible things he had done in the first film. So how are we supposed to root for this character when we know that he is actually a murderous psychopath?
And even towards the end, he doesn't really redeem himself. I mean, if anything, he comes out to admit that the things that he did was wrong, but it wasn't because he was sorry for his actions, because you don't even hear him say, like, I regret some of the actions I did. It was more so warning the little girl that, hey, I've done these things, get away from me, but you still can't.
So in our opinion, it completely betrays the message of the first film. In the first film, it shows these group of characters. At first, Stephen Lang seems like a slightly more sympathetic character, but as we've said many times, it turned out not to be the case. Turns out that they were all just terrible, except for arguably the main girl, Rocky, played by Jane Levy. She had some redeeming qualities, but they were still not great people. And in this film, just throw that into the fucking shredder. Stephen Lang is the hero, and
the only thing
he's here to save his daughter.
The only other conclusion we don't get in this movie is what happened to the woman from the first one when she...
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I get it. She gets out of it and she realizes he's alive, but you would have thought she would have came back for redemption because she knows he's not alive. So now she wants to really...
Although I did hear that they were planning on making a Don't Breathe 3. I don't know how they're going to do this, given this film's ending, but they were talking about bringing her back. Maybe she's going to be the blind antagonist now.
I just don't see how they can do it, especially the way this one ended. Like,
yeah, where are they going to go from here? There's literally nothing that they could do.
9 months, and I will give you your life back.
And also, Kim, you mentioned something in the theater that kind of made me chuckle. You mentioned that the mom in this movie, when she finally does appear, she resembled a certain Harry Potter actress that you're familiar with.
She reminded me a lot of the actress that plays Bellatrix.
Helena Bonham Carter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
The hair going, it's just like, I was sitting for a split second, thought it was her, but...
Yeah, for a second I thought it was a Helena Bonham Carter cameo. She's still doing terrible things, just not in the wizarding world anymore.
Right.
After she left Voldemort's army, she started life as like a crack addict, cooking food in this abandoned hotel.
Right.
And now she has heart disease. It's a very fitting ending for her character in Harry Potter.
Right.
Besides, being blown up by Molly Weasley. Yes, I'm a Harry Potter fan. I know what happens to Helena Bonham Carter's character in the movie.
It's the best part ever.
Yes. Ken, let me ask you another question. So, Ken, let me ask you a question. So, we mentioned earlier that they had discussed making a Don't Breathe 3. Do you think there's anything that they can do with this concept? I mean, anything that they can do to fill the void that Stephen Lang's character has clearly left in? What is there to do?
I can't really see them doing anything else with it. I don't know, like, who... I mean, if they brought the little girl in, that'd just be weird. I just know, like...
Or, Jane Levy's character from the first film.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just can't see... I don't know. Even if they did go in that route of even just bringing her, I just don't think it would be something that would make it an effective third sequel to this.
Yeah, I would say this franchise is pretty much dead in the water at this point. Another thing that I kind of did appreciate about this movie, was the atmosphere. It wasn't a badly shot film. There was some good atmosphere. There was some good lighting, and I like the early sequences when the supposed criminals are, they're still criminals, but like when they're, wandering, the hallways and they're looking for this little girl, the camera, is just slowly moving around, keeping the tension alive, and, we'll see shots of a little girl like hiding under the bed or maybe under a dresser. like those early sequences were pretty effective.
Yeah.
And I was actually getting, invested in what was going on.
No, I agree. Definitely, all that was really good up until the point where it just started kind of.
It was a really great example of a movie that had promise at the start, but it quickly lost its way.
Yep.
And I will say this, if they do decide to make any more, I just really hope that they don't go in the... I really hope they don't go in the direction of the Alien Predator movies where they do like a versus, like they do, like they bring Stephen Lang's character back from the dead.
Oh god.
And they pit him up against like another, recent horror villain. Like, they like pit him up against the killer from Wolf Creek. So it'd be like
goodness.
Don't Breathe versus Wolf Creek.
Please don't do that. Don't do that.
Like Alien versus Predator.
No.
But with these two...
Let's just leave it at this. We know the second one flopped.
So compared to the other horror movies that come out this year, where does this one rank?
I'm trying to remember what we watched already for this year.
The Conjuring 3. The Devil Made Me Do It.
It definitely, Conjuring still ranks above it.
A Quiet Place Part 2.
And that still ranks above it.
A lot of sequels.
It's pretty much at the bottom of my list.
Pretty much at the bottom. I would say it was better than Spiral, the new Saw movie starring
I didn't see that one, but
Chris Rock and Samuel Jackson. Let me ask you this: do you like the Saw movies?
I wasn't really a fan of them. Sorry.
Then you probably won't like Spiral. It was made for Saw fans, by Saw fans, but didn't really do much.
I mean,
for
I
me.
saw the concept they went with it, but I couldn't get into them.
Mm-hmm. Definitely better than Willy's Wonderland, starring Nicolas Cage, the Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff. Definitely better than that.
What about that one that you watched a couple weeks ago? Old?
Oh, oh my god, the M. Night Shyamalan movie? Okay, wow. Old was just ridiculous. But Old had like some things going for it. Like it was enjoyable in the sense that it was really terrible at spots. At least had that going for it.
So it ranks a little bit higher than...
Yeah, Old was a little bit better than Don't Breathe 2. Don't Breathe 2 compared to Old, I would say Don't Breathe 2 is like the Electric Boogaloo 2. Or Chasing... Goddamn, what's the name of that movie? Electric Boogaloo. You guys know what I'm talking about. Electric Boogaloo 2. That's Don't Breathe 2.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so those are our overall thoughts on Don't Breathe 2. Definitely not one of the better horror films to come out this year. But, pretty decent first half. Just end it after the first hour or so. And you'll most likely get some mild entertainment out of it. But we got some stuff to look forward to.
There's some more anticipated films this year that we're looking forward to.
Halloween Kills.
Candyman.
Man, I keep watching the trailer for that movie, and just some of the shots in that are fantastic.
And then the other one that comes out just before...
Malignant?
Yes.
Malignant. Another James Wan horror movie. Apparently he is paying homage to some of those older horror films from the 70s, so films like Suspiria and some older Barbara Steele films, just in the way that movie looks, and, the main character being this, bright-eyed, female victim, kind of harkening back to, like, some of those old-style, like, horror films, which James Wan has done before. Like, The Conjuring felt kind of old school, like, especially, in its setting and with some of its filmmaking techniques, but excited for that one as well. This film definitely didn't have us on the edge of our seats for the most part. I was able to breathe just fine.
We didn't have to hold our breath for this one.
Before we go, what was your favorite, since we've already gone into plenty of spoilers, what was your favorite kill in this movie?
Oh man. It was gruesome. I don't know why, but probably the mother.
She deserved it, though.
She did. And I did have a feeling when all the smoke went up into that room, and he was just firing off his gun. I'm like, he's going to kill his own wife. And then he did, and I was like, wow.
I'm very disappointed that the mother didn't use any of her magic spells to help her out of that situation.
Right? And I was like so surprised that girl had all of that energy to just... When she was...
Oh yeah, like, oh my god, like, when she's holding on to her, because they're like handcuffed and,
she's almost getting pulled down to her death.
Yeah, and, she's, dangling, like over the side of the pool, and the little girl, is trying to, free herself, from the handcuffs, and she ends up, sawing the mother's arm off.
I'm just like, what?
Man, damn.
I know.
This film went there in some spots.
I know. I was like, jeez.
My favorite kill was shown in the trailer. It was the moment where he is laying face down in the water, and some of the characters approach, and he can sense their presence due to the ripples, like in the water.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
You know, because of the ripples, you know, he is able to sense their presence and he just unloads on them. That was a really cool moment.
Oh, your favorite line was in that scene, too.
Okay, yeah, oh my god. Okay, just one more thing that I have to bring up. Some of the dialogue in this movie was freaking atrocious. Like, I talked about the dialogue in Shyamalan's Old being cringy. The dialogue in this was so just amazingly cringeworthy. Like, oh my god, I'm trying to pinpoint one. Like, near the end, when you have that one good-hearted, you know, criminal character, you know, talking to Stephen Lang. You know, he feels bad that, you know, he feels bad about what they're doing to that little girl. So he has a gun pointed at Stephen Lang, and he says in the most serious voice, "They're gonna kill that little girl, man, and that ain't cool." Like, are you trying to sound like badass? Like, what are you doing?
You could have just kept it at, "I don't agree with anything they're saying or doing. Go get them," or something like that. Like that.
Keep it simple. Go get them.
Like, go get them.
Go do your thing.
But no, they had to go extra with it. Like, why?
Yeah, a lot of the dialogue was like that, like very on the nose, just very cliche. Some of it was very blunt.
It wasn't cool, man.
It's not cool, man. Yeah, the dialogue in this movie was arguably more terrifying to sit through than sitting through a little girl having heart surgery being done on her.
Oh gosh, I was like, as you see the saw come down, you're like.
But
no.
I think we've talked enough about Don't Breathe 2.
Yeah.
Guys, what are your thoughts on this sequel? Please let us know in the comments down below. And if you have any suggestions on what we should watch next, as far as what we're going to actually do next, I think Candyman is the next big one.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it is. Been excited for that one. But guys, whatever you do, just please breathe. Don't suffocate yourselves. Stay healthy. You know, it's still 2021, so take care of yourselves.
And don't go into any movies blind.
Don't go into any movies blind, definitely. Make sure that you don't do that. And breathe, please. Anyway, guys, have a very good night. Take care, boils and ghouls, and stay classy, San Diego. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Breathe! Just breathe!